Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the MenoLounge. I'm Julie Gordon White, CEO of MenoWell, Menopause Energy and Protein Bars. And it is not Tuesday. We have a special MenoLounge for you today. I'm so excited. I know she's going to pop over here any second. I see you there. I'm going to bring you up here, Sharon. This is always the fun part. Super special guest today. I was going to wait till you came on, but I'm going to just sneak this up right here, Sharon.
Am I
Hey,
on the camera? You know, I don't know what I'm doing, Julie.
you're
So,
doing
good
great. We can see you. Can you see me and then I can
I
see you?
see
Then we're
you.
good.
I see you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. This is my advanced copy that I printed out. So your book is not going to be this gigantic in a binder, right? So
Oh, you know what? We need to send you a real one.
I
We can do that. I
okay.
can do that.
Send me a real run, but I'm actually so excited to get that advanced copy. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to talk about the book today, all the things, but I have to give you that proper introduction. This is the beautiful Dr. Sharon Malone, 30 years board certified OBGYN, chief medical officer for Alloy Women's Health, and first time author. Woo, 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 woo. I'm so excited. I was telling my daughter this morning, Georgia, that, hop on the MenoLounge. I'm talking to Dr. Sharon Malone. I already pre-ordered your book. So everybody here needs to go to Amazon or your favorite place, pre-order the book. Comes out April 9th, right?
April 9th.
April
Yep.
9th. And I said, even if you don't read it, put it on your shelf because you're going to go to it for the next 30 years, period to post. So Sharon, what did your daughter say about the book?
You know what? My daughters, if you ever want to be humbled, ask your daughters about something. They're like, "Yeah, Mom, haven't we heard it all before?" That's kind of what I get. I said, "All right, just hold tight for a moment. You're going to come back. All those questions you keep asking me, I'm going to send you to a chapter."
Right,
That's what I'm going
exactly.
to
Just go, chapter 7, right?
do.
They're like, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No, that's how daughters are. My
That's
daughter's
how
like,
it
no, okay, I'll put it on the shelf, Mom. But
is.
it's such an important book for our daughters, and that's part of why I wanted to spotlight that because these aren't conversations our mothers had with us. Some of us are having them. You and I, we have like more than they ever want to hear, even with our sons, right, about these conversations. But that's how beautiful this book is. And Sharon, I laughed out loud. I cried, little tears. I mean, it just hit on all the things. So,
Oh,
congratulations.
you have made me so happy because, sometimes when you have to talk, we talk about a lot of tough stuff in this book, but occasionally you've got to add a little levity, a little lightness to, some heavy topics. And I'm glad that was received as such because I want people to understand that this book was written from
Mm,
love. It is not from a place of scolding or chastising. You
yeah.
know, I wrote it mainly because I want people to understand that I'm not writing this. Yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. And these are things that not only that I'm dealing with from a medical perspective, but just from, the things that people I've dealt with who I love.
Yeah,
And this is the advice that I wish they had.
right.
And it's the advice that I want every woman to have.
So beautiful. Grown Woman Talk, which I love the title because, my grandmother from Louisiana, South, right? I know you're originally from the South, okay, girl, out of here. This is
Right.
grown woman talk, right?
You knew that as a kid and you wanted desperately to hear what they were saying. And you're like,
They're like,
you know,
this is grown woman talk.
and this
Yeah,
is all the stuff that, that they didn't tell us
right.
that we should know. And because I think that to know ahead of time really is going to have a huge factor of how you age, how you get through these things, such that if perchance one of these things happens to you, well, we know menopause will happen to all of us, so
Let's
that's not an option.
hope.
But
Yeah.
but even some of the other things, when they come up, you'll know. I say forewarned is forearmed.
Mm,
So when these things come up, when it's time to go to the doctor, you know what questions to ask when you go to the doctor, and then you have at least a good idea of what your options ought to be, even
right.
when you encounter these things.
Absolutely. We can be prepared. Okay, we're going to talk about menopause, chronic stress, weight, all the things. But right before we do that, can we talk about the playlist,
Yes,
Sharon? Okay,
yes.
you and I had lovely lunch last, I think October or something in Europe, but I didn't know that you were a secret DJ. So
Oh my
when,
goodness.
what's going on? Living my
Oh,
life like it's golden.
oh,
Talk.
you know what? You know what, Julie? In my heart of hearts, I would say if I could be anything, if I said my next life, I'd come back. I'd love to be a jazz musician, or sing like Shaka Khan, something like that. But I feel like that's probably not going to happen in this life. So the next best thing is to be a DJ. And I love music. I always have. And anyone who knows me knows that I have a song for every occasion. It's like, oh, you say that? Oh, I got a song for that. And I put these little things in my book because as I'm writing, there'll be a little musical note. And
Okay.
then you'll know that that's a signal that there's a playlist that's coming at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another way to lighten that load a little bit,
Hmm.
and to make it a little fun. But my second love, love medicine, great. But if I were to do something else, I would be doing something in the music world. So
So
that's
good.
my homage to my musical
Yeah.
career that I never had.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it. I love that you did that. My big sorority sister in college, she was Big Sister Cool Breeze, and that's what I think about you. Like Sharon, you're like my Big Sister Cool Breeze. So,
I'm in DC, so I'm Big Sister Quiet Storm. Okay.
oh, that's
We
true. That
got the quiet
here we
storm.
have this West Coast East Coast thing, right? Remember our very first conversation? Okay. Okay, so Sharon, let's hit it. Let's go into talk. Let's talk about menopause. That's how
Sure,
you and I connected over our menopause
sure.
conversation.
Right?
So we could talk literally for hours and hours about HRT, but can you just share briefly your stance on HRT, on hormone replacement therapy, because it's such a huge conversation, and I love that you come so head on with it from a place of confidence, obviously from your experience. So can you give us that
Sure.
first?
Well, let me just make this clear to everyone. There was a time before the Women's Health Initiative, which was the study that really got everybody thinking that hormones were dangerous and scary and they were going to give you breast cancer. And I practiced for 10 years before the Women's Health Initiative came out. And
Key.
so this
Yeah.
10 years before.
Yeah.
And so the message that we were giving women about hormones was pretty much the message that we're giving now, which is it relieves symptoms, you treat vaginal dryness, and you are decreasing the risk of heart disease. And that was really the big message that we
Okay.
were giving women, is that you take it preventatively.
Mm-hmm.
And when that study came out and it sort of dashed everybody's expectations and
Right.
said that it didn't decrease your risk of heart disease, oh, and by the way, there's an increased risk of breast cancer, the use of hormones plummeted, but it went against every, what I want women to understand, hormones are not new. They've been used for the treatment of menopause since 1942. And women have been complaining of the symptoms of menopause for as long as they've lived long enough to experience menopause.
Right.
So, this notion to do that about face and say they're good, we're using it, and then now this one study comes out, and it was a big study,
Yeah.
but sort of turned everything on its ear, was problematic. But for those of us who actually, in real time, in 2002, actually read the study, you look at it and you say, okay, that wasn't that bad. And
Yeah.
you realize that the study was really not indicative of the type of patients that we normally prescribe hormones. We give it to women when they're symptomatic, when they're in their
Right.
40s and 50s, not when they're in their 60s and 70s.
Right.
And that's who the majority of people in that study were, that age. And
Right.
the
Right.
problem is that the information that they got for women who are in their 60s and 70s was extrapolated to all women.
Right.
So
Right.
it is taken. And the terrible thing about it, Julie, is that we knew this in real time. It's not like this was something that we're just finding out this answer. No, my goodness, no. We knew this 20 years ago,
Right.
but for whatever reason, it was really hard to get that information out into the public square. You
Yeah,
know, be-
there was no pulpit for that. And for
right,
me, my mom had a hysterectomy in her 40s, so she told me that hormone replacement is not for us. It's not
right,
for our family. So that
right,
in my mind was never an option. It's why
right.
I went looking for natural solutions. And so now, it's
And
a different story.
and let me just say this. And when you say not for us, and this is
And us,
something, yeah, I do.
Black women
I
too,
know what the us
right?
is.
Okay.
Black women are probably the women who would benefit from hormone therapy the most because we have more risk factors for cardiovascular disease and we suffer from menopausal symptoms disproportionately. Our menopausal symptoms start earlier.
Really?
We go
Faster.
through we go through menopause earlier, on average about a year earlier than white women. We have symptoms that are more severe, typically the hot flashes, mood swings, sleeplessness, all of that, and they last longer. This whole transition from during what we call perimenopause or the menopausal transition, on average, lasts for Black women 10 years, where it's anywhere from 4 to 7 years for Asians or for white women.
Right.
And that means that you have an additional 10 years and during which time you are not getting a good night's sleep, hot flashes, and let me say, not getting enough sleep, having hot
Huge.
flashes, those are independent risk factors for developing cardiovascular disease,
Mm,
for developing hypertension, for developing obesity.
yeah.
So, when I say that this is somebody who, if there's anybody who needs hormone replacement therapy, and when you add to that, that Black women are more likely to have had hysterectomies
Right.
because you don't even need to take the progestin if you've had a
Mm,
hysterectomy, you can take
mm,
estrogen only.
mm, mm.
I mean, it almost becomes a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
Black women, I could go on and on, but the disparities that exist in health do not end with maternal mortality. So
No.
don't let anybody tell you that that's the part. Yes, we can focus on that, but what about the other 90% of your life?
What about the
What
rest
about
of us? Right. And
what
what,
about
a
all of
third of
that?
our lives were menopausal. So
Exactly.
below, wow.
Exactly.
So you touched on the fact that HRT and also just the whole menopausal experience and transition really impacts heart disease. I mean, heart disease is a huge part of it. For me, I got interested in this conversation because of my own weight gain,
Hmm.
as I'm going through the transition. And we
Hmm.
know when your estrogen drops, here comes the weight gain. And you don't get to pick where it comes. Not that we want it in the first place, but all around the middle, which really increases our risk for a cardiac event. I have hypertension in my family. So can you speak to that and how weight gain and heart
Yeah.
disease is a huge part of this?
You know
Huge.
what, Julie, I don't think there's a Black woman in America who doesn't have hypertension in their family. I mean,
Oh,
I,
gee,
I'm
lucky us, right? Yeah.
I'm one of 8 kids,
Yeah.
so trust me, we've got a little bit of everything. But the weight gain that happens, and the reason why it's so pernicious,
Yeah.
it's not just the weight itself, it's where the weight goes, because that weight that's gathering around your middle is also gathering around your internal organs. And it's really
Right.
problematic when that fat distributes around your heart. Now, we can have the debate as to whether or not, as you get older, is it menopause that's making you gain weight, or is it aging that's making you gain the weight?
Loss
And
of
I
muscle
was,
mass, which
yeah,
happens when
right,
we're not moving as much
right.
also. So that's a part of it
And
as well. Yeah.
And I would say that it's not really menopause itself that causes the weight gain, but what it is that it does affect the distribution of that weight gain. So if you take away your estrogen during the menopausal transition and beyond, more of that weight tends to settle in your midsection.
Yeah.
And again, you tend to lose muscle. And muscle is more
Love it.
metabolically active than fat, such that when you gain weight and you gain it as fat, that's why it's so hard to lose it, because fat
Right.
just kind of sits there. It's like, yeah, I'm waiting for the famine
Just hanging
that,
out. Right.
that never comes. And it's hard to lose it. So keeping your muscle mass is important, which gets us back to exercise. And let me say this, we spend a lot of time talking about weight as women. And the one thing that I urge women to do is I say, I want you to step away from the scale for a minute, because I don't really care what your weight is,
Mhm.
because we're not looking for a particular number that's right or what's
Right.
good.
Because
And we're not,
that number is not an indicator of health
it is,
necessarily.
it is
Right.
not, it is not. What's more important is whether or not you have what's called the metabolic syndrome, which is high blood pressure, that dangerous triad of high blood pressure, diabetes, elevated cholesterol, and triglycerides, and signs of sort of inflammation, chronic inflammation.
Mhm.
That's metabolic syndrome, and that dramatically increases your risk for cardiovascular disease and strokes and Alzheimer's disease. So I would say I make my patients this deal. I said, look, we're going to work on improving those numbers. We're not going to worry about, there's a point. Should most people lose some weight? Probably. But if you can manage to institute all of the healthy lifestyle behaviors that we
Right,
talk about,
right.
and again, hormone replacement is one of those things that we can use to help, because it does help with that distribution of body fat,
Mhm.
and it helps you maintain your lean muscle mass.
Right.
So yes, it's a tool, but by no means am I looking at this saying that you need to have a BMI of less than 27.
Right,
That's
because
not,
we also
that's
know BMI is, I think you described in the book, as a blunt instrument. I thought that was so great because I'm small, but I'm pretty muscle dense, and so my
right,
BMI, I'm like, what?
right.
Oh, come on now, so
Right. If
right.
you have great bone density, you're
Hmm.
going to weigh more. And,
Hmm.
and like I said, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Right.
So we don't use, we don't really look at BMI but I tell you this, this would be something my mother would say, you know, my mother would say, look in the mirror, you know, what do you think?
Good common sense, right?
Look at that. You kind of look, and one of the things that really is an indicator of increased risk is your waist bigger than your hips.
Yes,
Okay?
I'm so glad our waist to hip ratio, because to be honest, Sharon, me being on the nutrition side, there's this fine line about body shaming,
Right.
and I'm not about body shaming ever, but we know that our waist size is an indicator of our risk, and it increased our risk of a cardiac event. So waist to hip ratio, it's important, and that has to do with weight also. So
And let
let's
me
talk
and let
about
me
that.
say this, because I say this for people who like, oh, I weigh 125. But if you weigh 125 and your waist is bigger than your hips, you are still at risk for cardiovascular disease. There is a thing called skinny fat, and we've all seen people who look like this.
Right,
They don't weigh a lot, got really skinny arms and legs because, not a lot of muscle mass there,
right.
but your weight is still concentrated in the middle. And again, by a BMI standard, you would be, oh,
On the
great,
right side, yeah,
you're in the healthy side. No, you're
yeah,
not. No, you're not.
yeah.
So that's why I said I want people to kind of move away from the number and pay attention to those other parameters and risk factors. And I will challenge any woman to this. Exercise because like your life depends on it, because it does.
Mm.
And if you're exercising because you're trying to lose weight, you will be sorely disappointed.
Right.
Because I would hear this all the time. Patients would come in and say, "I've been to the gym and I have a personal trainer and I've been working out 3 times a week and
I
I
can't
haven't lost a pound."
lost
And
any
and
weight, right?
right, and what they do is they said, "Well, then I'm going to stop going."
Hmm.
No, if you don't
No,
lose an ounce, because remember all those things that we talk about being strong, about being fit,
right,
about your muscle mass, you are doing great
right,
things if you don't lose an ounce.
right. We
So
need the muscle. We need to
exactly,
lift weights, and we need to have our heart be healthy and get that heart rate up. That's what we do in
e-
the gym, right? But
exactly.
we manage our weight in the kitchen. It's what we put in our mouth. So,
Exactly. You know what? And full disclosure, I'm not overweight. However, I do not weigh at 65 what I weighed at 45 or what I weighed at 35. I mean, that's just,
it
that's
changes.
life.
It changes.
That happens. I'm okay. And as long as my numbers remain good and I can stay in the healthy range, I'm good with that. So to all my sister friends out there in the world, we're not looking for a number. We're looking for your health
Yeah.
parameters. And
We're
if you can do
looking for the
that,
right numbers, right? Not on the scale
exactly.
number.
Not
Yeah, I
on
love
the
that.
scale numbers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
really good. And in person, you are just a long, tall drink of water. So I don't know what you're talking about. Gorgeous and
No.
elegant.
Trust me, it's not what it
It's not
was.
the
That's
same.
it's not what it
Well,
was.
I didn't know you then, so I only know you now, and winning. Just saying. Okay, so really important. Thank you for sharing that because it is a sensitive conversation, but when we approach it from the lens of our health, our heart health, longevity, we can't just put our heads in the sand and say that it's okay to weigh any amount, it doesn't
Right,
matter, because
right,
it does. The
right,
hip to waist ratio, zero point
right.
0.8,
Point
note
eight.
it, zero point
Point
0.8,
eight. And you
point
can
0.8.
just look in the mirror and just go, okay, I'm good. Because let me say this, I come from a family, and this is the other thing I want people to understand is that, you say they have, people think, oh, it's in my genes. It's like, okay, well, I had two parents that neither of whom were ever overweight their entire adult lives. I had seven siblings, none of whom were overweight as young adults. Now they got overweight as they became middle aged and then seniors. But so you say, is it your genes? Well, we kind of all got the same gene pool here.
Right.
But what happens to people is your lifestyle changes.
Choices we make, yes.
It's just lifestyle changes. And I still say, but we don't, despite that, we don't have cardiovascular disease in our family
Mm,
in any significant way. We
interesting.
have
Yeah,
cancer, but no cardiovascular disease. And that's
yeah.
the thing that people also don't associate with being overweight. Being overweight also increases your risk of cancer.
Mm.
And,
Which you address beautifully
yeah,
in the book with such heart. I know your family has had a lot more, way more than your share of cancer. And so I really appreciate how vulnerable you are sharing all of that because we can all learn from
yeah,
your stories of your family. I want to talk, speaking of your family, your beautiful sister Vivian, you tell the story about her and just really addressing chronic
yeah.
stress. And so, because as women in midlife, I think you called it the triple decker sandwich, and it's not the turkey and avocado kind of sandwich. That, when we're
No,
taking care of our kids and our parents are aging, we're at the peak of our careers, maybe even our earning power. So we've got it all piling on, and our estrogen's going over the cliff, and the chronic stress. But the thing that struck me, I have to be honest, that you talked about women who, when tested, still have chronic stress, even though they don't believe they do. And I would say that's me. That I'm like, I got this. I meditate, but I don't know. Underneath, building a big business, doing all the things, I might be kidding myself. So share with us.
I would say women in general and Black women in particular minimize stress. You get to a point where you think that that's just normal. We normalize suffering, we normalize feeling bad, and we certainly normalize stress. And this is particularly an issue for Black women because, we all have, so your body reacts to stress for a reason. You got to get out of a burning building. You got to do a bunch of things
We
that you
need
may
that
have.
cortisol
We need that.
sometimes, right?
We
Yeah.
need that. But you don't need it every day, all day.
Right.
And what happens when you are chronically stressed? It is extremely toxic to
Mm-hmm.
your heart, to your body. It makes you gain weight, sleep, all of that stuff, because none of these things are unconnected.
Right.
You're stressed, you can't sleep. You can't sleep, you can't work. You feel terrible the next day. You're fatigued. What do you do when you're fatigued? You eat. You know, what happens when you eat and gain weight? You're going to exercise less because now you don't feel like it and you're tired.
Your
So
energy's
all
low. Yeah.
right, all of these things go together. And one of the interesting things that came out of what's called the SWAN study, the study of women across the nation, where they just followed women for, I think it's over 25 years, just to see what happens to them as they go through this menopausal transition and beyond.
Yeah.
And as they looked at things like sleep, what they found that Black women are less likely to report sleep disturbances, even though objectively, when they measure you're going to sleep at night, the number of hours of quality sleep that they got was far less. And that gets back to what I'm saying about normalizing feeling bad.
Right.
It blunts your sense. There's a sense called interoception, which means that it's an internal sense of how you feel when things are right, when you are normal,
Mm-hmm.
when, normally you're unaware of your body parts unless they hurt,
Right.
right?
We kind
You
of
know?
like that, right? You don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
feel all the things happening
I,
here all the time, right? Be too much.
I would like to not know that my vagina is dry. You know, I would like to not know. I would like to not
A low
feel
on that.
anything. You know, I would just say, "Oh, look at that! I'm walking around and I'm normal." Um, but when you normalize, when you raise that bar and you make feeling bad your baseline, then you don't have the ability to really know when there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why I say about this chronic stress factor is that when you don't realize how bad you feel because you think that's normal and you think that that's just what aging is like and
Right. And
that's how you're supposed to
our
feel.
mothers just told us, just soldier on, right? You
Right.
just suck it up
Right.
and go, basically. Yeah.
And it not only ruins our physical health, it ruins our mental
Mental.
health.
Right.
And we often don't get help when we need it. And it gets back to the issue of the disparity in treatment of women's menopausal symptoms, because I told you Black women suffer longer, more severely, and earlier. And yet they are least likely, even when Black women go to see their physicians, they are only half as likely to be given a prescription for hormone therapy. And once given that prescription, they take it home and they're only half as likely to take it.
Mm.
So if you had to look at a population that needs it most and gets it the least, that would be Black women. And so that's why I want to encourage women, if you are bothered, and this is affecting the quality of your life and and how you move about in the world, then you need to go and talk to someone about getting treatment. Don't
Yeah.
normalize suffering. Please
I
don't do that.
love that. Ask for what we need. And especially as Black women, we need to ask a little bit louder and a little more often. And we need to teach our
Right.
girls, teach
Right.
our girls, not
Right.
pass on the legacy, unfortunately, the broken legacy of suffering and silence. We don't need to do
Exactly.
that.
And you know what? And we have to deal. And there's a really good book out now by Dr. Uche Blackstock,
Mm,
and that's the name of her book, Legacy.
mm,
So see, that
mm,
was a perfect segue. But she talks about how a physician reckons with racism in
mm.
medicine. And let me say, there are a lot of things that we believe, and I say we as physicians, things that we are taught
Right.
that are not true, but that influences how we interact with patients. So, between Black patients getting under medicated for pain, um, you are less likely to be offered different types of surgery, minimally. If you have cancer, the reason why the disparities in cancer the mortality statistics in cancer are as bad as they are, it's not because we necessarily get more cancer. We don't, but we get less effective treatment.
Right. No,
And
no
we
treatment, less
we
effective.
don't
Right.
treat when we can. So even when controlling for socioeconomic factors, but we also have the real access problem. We are overly represented in people who are underinsured
Mm,
or uninsured,
mm-hmm.
underinsured. And so we have to deal with that. You have to deal with all the things that are out there that affect the quality of your life that don't have anything to do with you. We ascribe a lot of things to race that aren't race. They're the circumstances. It's where you live. You live next
Mm,
to a toxic dump. That doesn't have anything to do with your DNA. That doesn't make anything about what you're doing problematic other than where you live and what you have
yeah.
access to. So that's really the message that I want people to understand is that, we've got to, yes, we have to personally do better, but societally, we have to do better. You
Right.
know,
Well, do you
from,
want to talk about the legislation
yeah,
at all? That'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about
We
it.
have, of one of my many hats that I wear since I left my clinical practice 3.5 years ago, is that I want to do a lot. I've been doing a lot of advocacy for women in midlife because I think that no one pays attention to us.
Mm.
You know what I mean? You get to a certain point, it's like, who cares? Go and sit in the corner, but
We're
no
getting louder
one's
and louder, though, Sharon. That
right.
for sure.
Well, and you know what? We've got some traction, and I'm gonna take a little bit of credit for that because it's been collectively all of us out here though who have been raising our voices and making sure that issues about menopause and perimenopause are recognized not just for the bothersome symptoms, but for the long-term health implications that they have. It requires educating doctors. It requires making sure that there are research dollars dedicated to women in midlife. Yes,
Wow.
Dr. Lisa Moscone, who's out there finally, looking
Thank
at
you.
women's brains. I'm like, well, we have Alzheimer's at twice the rate of men.
Right.
2/3 of all
Right.
Alzheimer's patients are women. Black women have twice the risk of Alzheimer's as white women. Why, I don't understand why this is not new news either.
No.
Why
No.
has no one said, wonder why that is, and wonder if there's anything we can do about it? You know,
Yeah,
these are
it's just
the,
like Dr. Stacy Sims talking about, women are not small men, but we've
right?
been treated as small men. So they figure we're just, we're taken care of in these bigger studies, but we have not
No.
been, not at all.
We need representation,
Yeah.
not only in study participants, but we need representation in researchers because researchers, the one thing, and I'm not blaming, it's just the way it is.
Just is. Yeah.
People do research where they can get money to do the research.
Mm.
That's why there's
Mm.
so much research that's funded by pharmaceutical companies, because that's where the money is. And that's where I think that it's the role, our government, NIH, has a huge role to play because they are big funders of medical research. And that's where we have the ability to say, we're going to decide how our research dollars are spent. And it's time for women to raise our hands and speak up to say,
Right.
hey, we need answers. And it's not enough to just say, okay, well, we'll just wait and we'll, like, as you say, we'll do it on men and then we'll scale it down for you and hopefully it works.
Not
No,
the same.
not the
Not the
same.
same. Well,
Not
we'll
the
keep
same.
our fingers crossed that that $13 billion research legislation goes through. We get that funded, and hopefully we can pile on to that. Right.
Yep.
That's
And
just the beginning.
that's just the beginning because remember, we're half the population.
Right.
We don't get half the research dollars, but we're half the
Well, hopefully
population. So
now that the millennials are now perimenopausal, here we are. I'm the end of Gen X. We've got boomers here, and we're getting loud, and we have the money. So maybe now all of that influx and pressure conversation is going to finally get some dollars where we need them so we can understand our bodies. So at least our daughters, your two daughters, my daughter, my sons even, because I always say every man knows a menopausal woman. They need
exactly.
to be a part of this too. So really,
Exactly.
really good. So if you haven't already, I'm going to hold up my binder of your book
I'll
here.
look, I'll show you the real one.
Okay,
I'll show
you
you the
have
real
the
one.
real one. There
Oh,
you
that's the
go.
real
Yours is
one.
cuter than
That's the
mine, but
real
I
one.
still love mine, Sharon. I'm just saying.
We're gonna get you a real
A
one,
real one.
Julie.
Okay.
Not to worry.
So how about a couple of tips, some grown woman talk tips from Dr. Sharon, that little nuggets you want to pull out of the book? Maybe something that you didn't say that you wanted to say, but what would you like to share
You
in the
know
last
what?
few minutes
What
here?
I have to say is so basic, but
I
you
love it.
know it. But and the way that I sort of framed it in the book is that I'm going to say it to you as many different ways as I can say it, but I'm going to give you a different reason why you need to do it.
Mm,
So, we get to basic thing. Don't smoke. You know,
mm,
alcohol, we used to think alcohol was a good for your heart. Not really. Alcohol is, but come on, there's got to be some joy in the world, right? So yes, just limit the amount of alcohol that you take in. Get a good night's sleep. Exercise. And let me just say, again, exercise for exercise sake, because you're
yeah.
going to have tremendous effects throughout your body. And the other thing is try to minimize the stress in your life. And even when you can't minimize the stress in your life, try to figure out ways that you can cope with stress. But this is the advice I would give you. The advice of a 65-year-old looking back to my 45-year-old self, I would say don't stay in situations that stress you out,
Mm,
and be that work. you know, or if they're, let's be able to call it out or name it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Toxic relationships, be they, you know, romantic relationships or friendships,
Friendships
toxic.
too. Right.
Friendships can be toxic. Absent yourself from that situation, you know, because there's a lot we can't control in our life. There's a lot. I get that. But to the extent that you can, and whether you do that through meditation and exercise is a good stress reliever, prayer, yoga, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
just understand that don't let that chronic stress sit with you
Yeah.
because it's not doing you any good mentally or physically.
Beautiful. And you know what? The most basic things are the things, Sharon. We're always looking for the most complex, the latest this, that. It's the things that your mother told you before her beautiful spirit passed, your beautiful sisters, my mother. It's the basics. And if we just focus on eating well, sleeping well, having beautiful people in our lives and taking care of ourselves. I mean, that's what we need to do. And like you say in the book, you know, going into the fourth quarter of our lives, that's when we're adding all the value,
Oh my
right?
goodness. And you know what, Julie? Here's the good news because, and I think the reason why it's so helpful that we keep talking, because I want young women to see this is what 40 looks like. This is what 50 looks like. This is what 60 looks like. There is no reason in the world where someone should say, oh my God, then, you know, woe is me. No, you can stay vital and fit and engaged. And let me say this about menopause, because we spent a lot of times talking about the negative
I
aspects of
sure we do.
menopause. I'm just as happy as I could possibly be. You know, I don't think I've been happier. So
Same, right. I know
don't
what
look,
you're saying.
you know,
I think there's a study out that says women are actually happier in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, probably because we get our lives back. You know, I'm going to be 59 next month. It just gets freaking better and better and
oh
better. I'm just saying.
my God. Yes, yes. So just keep that in mind. This is what 59 looks like. This is what 65 looks like. Look at all these women who are out here talking, and these should be your role models,
Yeah.
not just thinking that the inevitability of disease and death, you know, it will come, but let's push that tendency way off in the future.
Oh, that's so good. So good, Sharon. I want to ask you, I ask all my guests this one question. You know, our company's called MenoWell, and there's a reason why, because that's what women told us they wanted to do. So what does the phrase MenoWell mean to you, Sharon?
MenoWell means reclaiming, in the words of Auntie Maxine, reclaiming my time, you know, of being able, this is the first time in my adult life that I could pay attention to me
Mm,
and not put someone else's needs above mine. Yes, I do care about my children and I certainly care about my husband, but at the end of the day, I get to put me first.
mm,
And that's what mental means to me. And I hope that people understand that that's not being selfish. That's just being, that's
mm.
self-care.
That's self-care. That's so beautiful. It's our time, Sharon. It's our time.
It's our
It's our
time.
time. That's what grown woman talk actually is all about. Okay, hold your book up since you have
Okay,
the
hold the
real
real one.
one. I have the printout. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, screenshot. There you go. You know what? Instagram always makes everything look in reverse, but you know me. So,
Well, you know what? And I would say, and please order it now and then check and go to my Instagram. It's, S Malone MD. um, because I'm going to be out there in the
yes.
world and I may be coming to a city somewhere near you. So please check out my
Yeah.
Instagram and see where I'm going to be. And please come out to see me. And you know
Yes.
what? And it makes a good Mother's Day present too, by the
Okay,
way. So,
this is what
yeah.
I think if you're in a book club, you need to have the book for the book club. You've got to send it to your girls. So your daughters, your besties, just pre-order it for them in advance and have those conversations. It's like menopause. We need to have them, but there's so
Right,
many other good conversations in your
right,
book that need to
right.
be had. It is a resource. And besides, it has the most, I don't know, should I swear, like kick-ass playlist in it too. The
Got some
only the
music.
only song you forgot was Unwritten. That's one of my favorites. That's my Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield because I feel like the rest is still unwritten.
We'll see. I'm going to put that, I'll have to put that in the addendum. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not writing another book. It'll just
Okay,
be
you
in
know,
the addendum.
that's what everybody says. Uh-huh. There's going to be a part two. I know, I know. Sharon, thank you so much. Your book comes out August 9th, but you can
April
pre-order
9th.
it. I mean, sorry,
April.
April 9th, not August. April 9th, like 2 minutes away. You can pre-order it everywhere right now. You're on a book tour. I see you're going to be with one of my favorite people, Abby, who I don't know, coming up here. Love Abby so much. And all over. So thank you so much for your time today. I know you got a lot coming up. I'm so excited for you. So thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Julie. This has been a long time coming, but it was well worth it.
Perfect
Thank you for
timing too.
having me. Thank you for having
So
me.
glad, Sharon. Be well. And I'm going to see you coming up in a couple weeks in
Yes.
May for Let's Talk Menopause and other things. So I'll see you in your side of the world. All right.
All
Be
right.
well.
Be well.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.